Hello, welcome to What This Week. I'm Kerry and I am in the woods, as you can see. I am being brave and filming in public. I have a stack of books that I need to take pictures of for Instagram for my reviews, so I thought I'd bring them with me whilst Duncan took the dogs for a walk. And so I'm killing two birds with one stone and doing my What This Week here as well. Also taking advantage of the fact that it's not hammering with rain, which it is forecast to do later, but we are embracing and enjoying the sun while it lasts through the autumn. So what I've been reading since I caught up with you last, there's a few bits and pieces that I've been reading. The first is The Phone Box at the Edge of the World by Laura Imai Messina, and it's translated from the Italian by Lucy Rand. This was a Christmas present last year, so it was one of the books that I was really keen to get to before the end of the year. I try to read the books that I've been gifted, fairly quickly, but definitely within the year that I've been given them. So picked this up and it was fine. I thought it was going to be a bit supernatural, but I'd seen another review which by Rosie, I forget her channel name, but I'll try to remember to link it. Rosie read this and thought the same as me, that it was going to be a bit supernatural, and then was surprised when it wasn't. So it's based on true events. It's based on a phone box that's situated on this windy hill in Japan where people go and talk to their dead loved ones. So it's not paranormal, they're not actually talking to their dead loved ones, but they are having that experience of speaking into the void, as it were, to, as if in prayer, I guess, but without that kind of religious element. And so it's very touching, very moving. It's about a woman who's lost her mother and daughter, who goes to this phone box, and a man who's lost his wife, and they develop a relationship through the connection of their shared grief, but also meet through this phone box. It's not as twee as Before the Coffee Gets Cold, so it's not in that sphere of, this isn't Japanese, it's written by an Italian, but that kind of vibe, it has that vibe. It was very sweet and it was a love story, and I'm not hugely into romance generally. I didn't connect with any of the characters emotionally. I think that's probably what was missing for me. They weren't as fleshed out as I might have liked them to be, but it was a very easy, gentle read, so if that's something that you're in the market for, this wasn't a bad book. Next, I read Claire Keegan's So Late in the Day. This is her latest publication. Claire Keegan is the queen of short, succinct, sharp, kind of capturing that moment in time writing, and she exquisitely describes a situation for a person, and we know immediately what they're feeling in that moment. We get to know these characters really intimately in no time at all. It's a real incredible magical skill that she has to do that. This is about a chap who is kind of like going through the grind of his daily his work day, and he's reflecting on a situation that led up to his current circumstances and the breakdown of a relationship, basically, and kind of looking back with regret on his behaviour in that situation. I liked it a lot because it did all of those things that Claire Keegan does so beautifully. I could have done with this being a bit longer. I could have done with a bit more time with this chap to really get the full benefit of his perspective and the perspective of the others. We only get his perspective, and I think I would have liked to have heard from the other characters in this perhaps a little bit, but still beautiful. Still, I think I gave it a 4.75 as opposed to a 5, which I have for her other books. Next, I read two poetry collections. There's two dog walkers getting back from their dog walk, so I'll try not to be self-conscious. The first is Trigger Warning, which is a collection of poetry by various different authors, published by Blood Moon Poetry. This is, or was, a small independent feminist press based in Bristol. I bought this from Bookhouse 2 years ago, I think. and I don't think they exist anymore. I tried looking them up to tag them and couldn't find their website anymore, so I wonder if that's dissolved, which is a massive shame. But they curated this collection of poetry, all based on, all written by women who've had experience of sexual violence. So it's quite a hard-hitting collection. Every single woman, every single poet in this collection, and there's quite a lot. I don't know if it says how many. I know that's pages. But you can see there's quite a lot of poems crammed into this collection. Every single one is about a woman's experience of violence from a man, or sexual violence. So it was very hard hitting, but really incredible, and they encourage you at the start to kind of read it slowly, but actually I think it was all the more powerful for reading it in... Sorry, there's a car going. Making a noise leaving the car park. But it was, for me, it was all the more powerful reading it in a day, and having that kind of like build up of experiences, which is the reality of people, and women specifically, experiencing violence from men. Yeah, so, and there were some corkers in here, obviously. Very, very good collection. I also read The Bed of Memory by Earle. Earle was a Welsh poet. And this was a collection of two halves for me. I didn't connect with most of the poems in here, so it's, as the title indicates, it's about memory and her experience of certain aspects of her life through that lens of memory. And so I know poetry is personal, but it was so deeply personal, I didn't feel like I was party to perhaps what she was talking about. I felt like I was missing out on stuff because it was, you know, her reflections on her memories. I'm not articulating myself very well. Yeah, reflecting on deeply personal memories, and so I didn't feel like I was in on that with her. It felt kind of alienated. But there were a few poems in here which... There's a really cute Dachshund walking past. There were a few poems in here which were written around the time when she lost her husband, and they were exquisite. They were so beautiful and well worth reading the whole collection for. Those were ones that I connected with very deeply emotionally, and so that's what I mean by it being a kind of book of two halves, really. Some of them I didn't connect with at all, and some were incredibly moving, like moving to tears moving. They were really, really stunning, capturing the really tiny moments in a person's life that are so striking when you're experiencing grief and loss. Yeah, it was very beautiful. So I'm glad to have read it, but yeah, it was a hit and miss collection for me. Then I read Turnglass by Gareth Rubin. Ooh, wrong way round. Turnglass by Gareth Rubin. This book is a tête bêche, so you start the story by reading from the front cover, obviously, and then you get halfway through. Will she find it? Here we go, halfway through, and then you flip it and you read from the back cover into the middle to finish. So this was a mystery within a mystery. First story is set in the 1800s, so I thought could count for my Victober reading. And it's a sort of murder mystery story. A young doctor is called to a distant uncle's very remote house to find out why he's very ill, and try to solve that mystery, and then a dead body turns up, and so on. Then you turn over and the second timeline is set in the 1930s, I think it's between the two world wars, and we discover an author, and there are links to story number one. And I won't give any more away because it would be a spoiler, but it was a really, really good time. I had a lot of fun with this. It was very clever to see how the two stories linked up. It was very neatly done. So I don't read a lot of mystery, so I quite enjoyed I'm just going to pause because there's a car going past. Yeah, so I don't read a lot of mysteries, so I quite enjoyed seeing the twists or predicting the twists coming and then having that ticked off for me, so it was very neatly presented. You'd get a hint, you'd draw your own conclusion, and then you'd get like confirmation that you were right, and I found that a really satisfying reading experience. But if you're somebody that reads a lot of mysteries and likes something more complex, then this might be a bit frustrating for you, or a bit simple perhaps, but I really enjoyed it for that. Yeah, there were a couple of things that didn't quite work for me. In the first section there's quite a lot of diary entries, but the diary entries are written as if they're not diary entries. There's a lot of dialogue in them, but you wouldn't write a diary entry like that, right? So that niggled me a little bit, but it had to be that way in order to link in with the rest of the book and mystery. There was a lot of conveniences, but I'll allow it because it was so cleverly put together. So yeah, that was The Turnglass by Gareth Rubin. And currently I am reading Minnow by Mark Dunn. This is a lot of fun. It's very silly, but I'm really enjoying it. So it's about a fictional country which is a very, very small island off the US coast, and they revere this chap called Nollop, who wrote a sentence, a very short sentence that has all of the letters in the alphabet in it, and so he's revered for his use of his expert use of language. One day this cenotaph, a memorial to Nollop, which has his sentence written on it, one of the tiles for one of the letters drops off, and the town council, instead of deciding, okay, well, you know, clearly the glue has perished, decide that it's a sign from Nollop, from the grave, from beyond the grave, that they are to stop using that letter, and so that letter is banned. And so it goes on. It's really silly, it's a lot of fun, and I'm having a really good time. It's one that I'm finding I'm wanting to kind of like pick up in between doing other things. I'm not wanting to wait for a time when I'm sitting down and reading. I'm literally thinking, I wonder if I can squeeze in a little bit of that here and there, which is always a really good sign. It's written in letter form, so that's easy enough to do. So that's what I am reading. In terms of what I'm listening to, I have started listening to Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's about a woman who goes to convalesce at a convent, and yeah, I haven't got that far into it yet, but her writing is so simple and yet very striking. I'm very much enjoying it so far. So that's the bookish news. In terms of what I've been watching, I've watched two videos which have sort of, in my mind at least, been in conversation with each other this week. One is Sajid over at Books of My Social Life. Sajid posted a video on anti-intellectualism, particularly in the book community, which I know is a kind of like running conversation, like is book talk killing intellectualism and so on. The other is Kieran at KD Books posted a video about toxic positivity, and specifically how that relates to book reviewing. Both of these videos really gave me pause for thought. This sense of superficial book reviews, just kind of promoting a book and saying I liked it over and over and over again, what is that actually contributing? Yeah, I'm always going to come away from conversations like that feeling like I'm not good enough. Because I really want to be in that side of booktube and the book community that is thoughtful and considered in their reviews, but also want to be realistic in this is a hobby and I want to enjoy my reading, and I definitely go into different books with different expectations. So some books I would be far more critical of than others. There's a notorious book club book that we read called The Dinner Lady Detectives. We read it for Christmas last year, and most of the book club absolutely slated it. I really loved it because my expectations were that it was going to be a gentle, cosy crime, and it is that. Was I critiquing the character development, the prose, the imagery, the themes explored? No. No, I wasn't. But I'm also not comparing it to your Maggie O'Farrell's or, and so on. So yeah, I think there's a place for both. I think where I have landed is somewhere in the middle, to be a contrary fairy about it all. I don't want to be that person that says that never says they don't like a book, because, as Kieran pointed out, that's just dishonest. You can't like everything. And I think it's okay to say when you don't get on with something, if you're able to say why. I certainly watch book reviews which you know, a reader hasn't enjoyed the book, but something about the way that they describe it sells it to me, and I will then kind of pick it up. So a negative book review isn't a bad thing. It still encourages reading, because what I know that what I like might not be what everybody else likes, and vice versa. Yeah, like I say, it gave me a lot of pause for thought. I tend to review books on Instagram, but they are very short reviews, because I don't like reading long captions on Instagram, so I don't expect that of anyone else on my behalf. So they do tend to be quite short reviews, but I try to capture the essence of the book and, you know, basically something that I liked, or what didn't work for me in those, just within a few sentences. So they're short, but I hope sort of thoughtful. But it has given me pause for thought about how I talk about books on here. I don't want to be that person that's just like, yeah, I thought it was great. I want to be able to say why I thought it was great, and that's essentially what Sajid's argument was, that when we're reviewing books, we just need to ask why a bit more. Like, what did you like about the prose? What was it that worked for you about the character development? What did you like about the romance? Asking why a bit more. So I'm going to try and do that. We're not changing anything dramatically. I'm not suddenly going to start doing very intellectual, in-depth reviews, because that's not who I am. But I would like to be thoughtful and a bit more critical, perhaps, in how I talk about books that I am reading. I'd really encourage you to watch those two videos and maybe watch them together like I did. I've caught up on a lot of BookTube over the last few days, over the last week. So I am now up to date. I reached the top of my subscription list this morning, and honestly it felt like a bit of a relief. But I'll link those two videos in the description below so that you can check those out too. In other news, I've been on holiday. We've been to Seaton in Devon for a few days, which has been very nice. We've had a week off work and we went for 5 nights, 6 days, something like that, and had a really lovely time. We were very lucky with the weather. This is very British of me telling you how the weather was on my holiday. We had one really torrential day, but other than that it was gorgeous. I had a sea swim. I went to go for a second sea swim and then chickened out because the waves were looking a bit choppy. We had a lot of ice cream because we are British and on holiday, regardless of the fact that it's October, and the dogs had their first dog ice cream. That was quite the experience. Yeah, so that's been lovely. So the vlog that I'm filming at the moment is Books with Gimmicks. Just to give you a hint, these two are featured in it. And yeah, some of the kind of like B-roll footage of my holiday will be in that vlog. I've no idea when it's going to be finished and ready to go out, but it's coming. And I think that's it. That's news from me. We're going to the cinema this afternoon. We're going to see Joker Folie à Deux, and then tomorrow it's back to work, but soon be Christmas, eh? I hope you're having a really smashing week. Let me know what you think of filming outside. It's nice. It's nice when there's nobody around, but it's also mortifying when people walk past, which has happened quite a lot. So yeah. Right, I have a stack of photos to take. I have a stack of books to take photos of for Instagram, so I'm going to go and do that now, and I'm going to wish you a really lovely week ahead, and say that I hope that you're looking after yourself, and I'll see you again in the next video.